year for the Ginter Park Residents Association, which is an association of approximately 1,200 homes in Northside. Most of our neighborhood is over 100 years old. We have had a history of having candidate forums for over the last 40 years. We don't make endorsements, but we do think that people who want to represent us should be invited to come speak to us so we can see their priorities, hear how they problem solve, and basically make up our minds about who we want as representatives. So we're very appreciative of all of you to be here tonight. We'll start off with opening statements of 4 minutes each. I have a timekeeper. You'll hear the time go off when you're finished. In your 4 minutes, please describe your education, your professional experience, and your leadership experience that have produced an administrative, budgetary, problem-solving, leadership, communication, and empathy skills that are needed to make a competent mayor. You may add additional comments to your 4 minutes if you'd like. To call on Justin Griffin to start. Mr. Griffin.
Thank you for having me. As you just heard, my name is Justin Griffin. I guess to follow the request there, give you a little bit of background about myself. Politics is not my career. My day job is that I'm a small business attorney. I have my own small business law practice where I have worked with over 500 businesses all across Virginia. I got my law degree from the University of Richmond. I also have a degree in accounting with a minor in economics. And so I think from there, it kind of goes into the second part of the request of talking about how I can handle budgetary issues and financial issues and leadership issues, and kind of the approach that I would take is more of a private sector business-like approach, somebody who understands budgets and finance. And, you know, I really got into this race because I believe that we deserve better here in Richmond. And that's been my slogan. And I think the best way I found to explain that is to tell some of the stories that I've heard while out talking to residents all over the city. And so first, when I say we deserve better, I mean we deserve better leadership during times of crisis. Obviously, during this summer, we had a lot of unrest. And as I talked to Richmonders, I heard stories of business owners who had to sleep in their business for 17 nights straight, or another business owner who actually had his windows smashed and lost everything. I talked to a homeowner who had $5,000 worth of damage to her home, and another who had to stay up all night watching because he worried for his family. So I believe that we deserve better. We deserve better schools. Knocking on doors, I happened to meet somebody who worked for RPS, who was a teacher's assistant, and was telling me that she finally worked up the courage to ask the teacher why she never assigned homework. And the teacher's response was just, they won't do it. It'll just bring down their grades. And we wonder why our graduation rate dropped from 80% in 2016 to 70% in 2019. So our families and our kids deserve better. We deserve better roads. Right now we're seeing a flurry of election year paving, but I talked to a gentleman who lives in Mosby Court who hit one of the giant potholes in his neighborhood and suffered for it because it broke the tire rod in his car and he lost his reliable transportation to work. And finally, we deserve better city services. I've talked to people who have had broken water meters for 8 months, couldn't get a trash can for a year, business owners who couldn't get permits and inspections for months, can't get trees trimmed, can't get sidewalks fixed. It goes on, and I'm sure you all probably have some type of similar story dealing with the Richmond city government. So we deserve better here in the city. And so the city is an amazing place with amazing people, and I just want to see our city government match the quality of the people that we have here in Richmond and keep moving us forward. And I look forward to telling you how tonight.
Thank you. Kim, I'd like Kim Gray to go next.
Thank you, Norma. Sorry, I had problems unmuting.
All right.
So I couldn't agree more. We deserve better as Richmonders. I'm a lifelong Richmonder. I've spent the past 12 years as an elected official. Norma and I served on the school board from 2009 to 2012. I ran for the school board, not as a politician. I ran because I was frustrated as a parent. I had 5 students, 5 children in Richmond Public Schools, and the difficulties navigating the school district. I had 5 children in 4 different schools to get them the best education I could afford them. And that was not an easy task with transportation and all the other challenges. I decided that I was going to make a difference by running for school board. I dove in head first, and we made a lot of progress. And for the 8 years that I spent on the school board, helped develop a master plan for our school facilities, which are disturbingly lacking. Prior to being an elected official, I was honored enough to serve Governors Warner and Kane in their administrations. I worked on policy issues that range from social services to education to transportation policy under Pierce Homer, Secretary of Transportation, who lives in Ginter Park. I am a dedicated public servant. I think service is all about leadership. I have spent the last 4 years getting people super cans and tracking down permits and bringing a common sense approach to how we solve problems for citizens in the city. I stood with Ginter Park against the canopy project that now sits a third vacant and is a massive development that I think once post-COVID traffic resumes, we'll see some implications with traffic and other things along the Brook Road corridor. I represent a portion of Ginter Park and Laburnum Park on the second, as a second district council person. I have worked at every level of government. I worked in the General Assembly as a lobbyist to advocate for better schools and public television, and even lobbied for the Girl Scouts. So I have extensive experience at every level of government and budgetary experience that spans not just our local budget, but an understanding of our state funding systems and how we can be most effective in advocating for the citizens of Richmond. I think what best qualifies me is my connection to the community and my service to the community. I'm well known throughout the city and am a person who gets it done. And I don't make a lot of noise around solving problems, but I get issues resolved for citizens whenever they reach out. Thank you.
Yeah. Next, we'll hear from Alexis Rogers.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for hosting this event, Ginter Park. Wish we were actually in Ginter Park to have this conversation with you all. My name is Alexis Rogers. I am running for mayor. I'm a community organizer and policy leader that has lived in the Richmond area my entire life. I grew up in Hanover County, just north of the city. Was raised by really hardworking parents who always instilled in me that, if you work hard, you save, you're wise with your money, that you'll be able to build stability for your family and be okay. And that mostly was true for us until economic crisis hit. The Great Recession hit, and my father, who had been working at Circuit City for as long as I can remember, lost his job. And he didn't have a college degree, just like my mom didn't have a college degree. So he was going out into the job market with a lot of young folks willing to work for a lot less. And he struggled to compete. He was out of work for about 18 months. His severance at Circuit City ran out. And it was tough for us. And, we were juggling. How do we pay the mortgage? How do we keep the lights on? My mom picked up an extra job at Food Lion to try to make ends meet. And it was tough. And it was an awakening moment for me. It made me realize how important it is to have decision makers in Congress and certainly here at the local level who are going to fight for working families and make sure that we are passing economic policies that support families like mine. That's what got me involved. And that's why I've dedicated my career to fighting for working families. As the communications director at Planned Parenthood, we were working to pass Medicaid expansion so that more folks would have access to healthcare. 400,000 Virginians and thousands here within the city of Richmond. Currently, I serve as the state director for the National Domestic Workers Alliance, where every day I'm advocating for establishing and expanding worker protections for domestic workers, nannies, home care workers, cleaners, who historically have been cut out from every basic labor protection, whether that's minimum wage, workers' compensation, unemployment insurance, you name it. They've been left out. And so this year, because of our work with Senator McClellan and other champions in the General Assembly, we were able to pass historic wage protections for domestic workers. We are the first state in the entire South to do it. And that has a huge impact for working women here in the city of Richmond. Now, Black and brown women, majority Black and brown women who are domestic workers in the city of Richmond and across Virginia are going to be protected with minimum wage protections, and that, of course, minimum wage is raising to $15 an hour, which is so important. I've managed budgets both as the director of nonprofit organizations, as a board member of various nonprofit organizations. I currently serve as the board chair for Emerge Virginia, training and recruiting Democratic women to run for office across the Commonwealth. And I'm excited to run for mayor because we need an advocate who will be fighting for families, putting people first in policymaking every single day, not beholden to corporate special interests, not trying to serve their own political agenda, but always rooted in the community and always working to put people first. That's what my career has been about. That's what my record speaks to. And I look forward to earning your support tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Rogers. Now, our Mayor, LeVar Stoney, would you go next? And you're on mute.
How many times do we hear that a day? You're on mute. Good evening, good evening, Norma. Good evening, Ginter Park, and thank you for the opportunity to discuss my positive vision and my record as mayor of the great city of Richmond. You know, the last 4 years roughly have been it's been the greatest honor of my life to serve as your mayor, and I still pitch myself each and every day that I get to wake up and do the job that I love doing, being the mayor of the greatest city in the Commonwealth of Virginia and beyond. And being the child of two kids who were both teenagers when I was born. My mother 16, my father 19, and had the great honor of being raised by my grandmother, who was a domestic worker, and my father a janitor. I was the first of my family to graduate from high school, go to college, and graduate from college. During college, I studied political science and public administration. I was a double major in both of those subjects. I was able to start working right here in the city of Richmond back in 2004, and I moved here to start a career in public service. Worked for a number of different candidates and campaigns. Had the honor of serving as the executive director of the Democratic Party of Virginia at age 26, managing a multi-million-dollar budget. I worked for Governor Terry McAuliffe when he won his campaign for governor back in 2013, where I was the deputy campaign manager. And then I was Secretary of the Commonwealth, and I got the chance to work on an issue near and dear to me because my father was a returning citizen. Working with the governor, we were able to put the administration on track of restoring the rights of over 150,000 people, former offenders, returning citizens who got the right to vote for the very first time here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Then I ran for mayor and was able to serve as mayor for the last 4 years. And I took the experience of being a child to a former offender and also growing in a household that was a part of the working poor. And I've seen my experience and my work through the lens of my grandmother and my father. I got right to work and working on public education. We built 3 new schools here in the city of Richmond, 1 in the East End and 2 in South Side, all centered in Black and brown neighborhoods. We were able to put more dollars in Richmond public education than any mayor, any administration in a generation. Nearly $30 million in new funding in Richmond public schools. Now 57 cents on every real estate tax dollar now comes to Richmond Public School. And I lived up to my commitment in expanding after school programs for each elementary school and middle school in the city of Richmond. Additionally, I believe that not only do we have to focus on where the child lives or the child goes to school, but also we need to focus on where the child lives as well. We were able to triple the Affordable Housing Trust Fund over my time as mayor. We've built 1,500 affordable housing units in a matter of 2 years. Made a promise in 2018 that we build 1,500 units by 2023. We were able to get to that goal at the beginning of 2020. We also, I'm very, very proud that we started the eviction diversion program. Richmond was ranked 2nd highest in the country for evictions. And we acted swiftly in building an eviction diversion program, the first of its kind in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Moving forward, a couple of issues I want to focus on. I want to focus on transforming public housing in the city. I want to focus on increasing Black home ownership in the city. I also want to focus on free universal pre-K for each and 3-year-old and 4-year-old, so we can actually live up to the commitment that education is the great equalizer. I would not be here today if we said to our children that in our public school system that we should do more with less. I also am proud of the fact that over the last couple of years, we were a city that could not turn its financial reports in on time, the CAFR. Now we turned the CAFR in 3 times in a row, not only on time, but also early as well, which the Wall Street credit rating agencies have recognized us and giving us both upgrades in our credit rating or bond rating, Moody's, Fitch, and S&P. Tonight,
Thank
I'm
you.
looking forward to sharing my vision with the Ginter.
Time's up. Julianne, do you see the 5th candidate anywhere? Because I don't. Okay. it's not
No,
seeing
ma'am, I
her.
don't. Yeah, no, I don't.
All right, we'll go to the next question then. This time it's about administration. In terms of waste, inefficiency, ineffectiveness, or lack of transparency, which city department is the focus of your greatest concern? What changes would you like to make and how would you proceed? Start with Kim. You have a minute.
Sure. The city is plagued with the lack of transparency. I think the planning department is one of the major areas that concerns me, because I think that they're beholden to large developers and not the community. We have an example with the Pulse Corridor plan that we spent months with the planning process and ended up with a TOD designation, 12 stories. And then when the actual zoning overlay came into play, it was 20 stories. And we are still battling that out right now.
Thank you. Alexis?
Yeah, my focus would be on making the permit department more efficient and accountable to the people. When I worked at Planned Parenthood, one of the first things that we were tasked with was trying to open a new health center in the city of Richmond on the East End. We had hundreds of patients traveling from the East End all the way over to Hamilton Street to access primary care, to access cancer screenings and birth control. And that was a healthcare injustice. So we wanted to open up a new health center in the East End. And unfortunately, we fought with the permit office, and it was quite a hassle. It wasn't because we didn't have enough money to fund the project or a construction company, but unfortunately, the bureaucracy at City Hall and the inefficiencies there held us up for quite a while, which ultimately blocked healthcare access for Black and Brown Richmonders in the East End. It's got to be a priority. It's not sexy. It's not something that's going to get you on the front page of the newspaper. It's not something that a lot of people even realize is an issue in the city of Richmond, but it impacts a lot of us in various ways, whether that's a small business owner trying to, or a
Thank
house.
you. Okay, LeVar?
Yes, I think the agency with the office with the most room for improvement would be plannings and inspections. If you talk to whether it's the Realtors Association, the Home Builders Association, or even to the neighbors here, right here in Ginter Park, and they would say they've had some issue dealing with permits and inspections. Now, since 2013, 46% of the apartment units in the greater Richmond region have been built right here in the city of Richmond. If you look at between March 2019 and March 2020, you would see that we had 1,900 units permitted. That's a 600 increase on the previous year. This office gets a lot of attention. And so moving forward, we have to focus on recruiting more talented people to work in an office, giving them the best salaries to work in that office as well to avoid attrition, which has been a major problem, and investing in more technology. This past year, with COVID-19, the pandemic, we've done virtual inspections. We've moved a lot of the permitting online for residential and building trades permits. We also have had third-party vendors for plan and review process as well. We didn't use a third party moving forward.
Justin?
Yeah, so when you look at waste and inefficiency in the city, you'll see waste and inefficiency in every city department. If you follow me on social media, you'll see that I've been posting an example of waste or mismanagement a day. We're up to 58 was today. I'm doing one every day until the election. So you'll see things like failure to issue 1099s to getting fined $100,000 by the IRS, constant problems without written policies and procedures, leading to things like paying invoices twice. Like you've heard, the permits and inspections office is plagued with issues. such as failure to bill for elevator inspections for 3 years, costing the city $1 million in revenue. And so it goes on and on and on with examples like that in all of the city departments. But I would say, I guess the permits and inspections office is the one that I saw the most of those examples. And you can check out my social media for all of the examples.
Thank you. Kim? Oh, I started with you. Sorry. Next question. This is about the budget.
I'm happy to answer some more.
So, which city taxes or fees, if any, would you propose to raise or lower, and why? We'll start with Alexis on this one.
You know, I think Richmond residents are already paying a lot in taxes. Under this administration, we've seen an increase in meals tax and also sales tax. And, you know, for me, I wouldn't feel comfortable, especially during this economic crisis, to continue to raise taxes that are going to impact individual folks. I do think that we need to be looking at ways that we can make sure that state government properties and nonprofit entities like the VCU buildings across the community are paying their fair share to our community. I think that is an important way for us to make sure that as VCU grows, which I'm a proud Ram, I'm very proud to have been alma mater, to have VCU as my alma mater. But also as VCU grows across the city, we are seeding land or property that could be generating more revenue for our community. So that's what I would be looking at. I don't think now is a good time to be raising real estate or meals tax or, you know, further, I guess,
Thank you.
individual Richmonders.
Okay. LeVar?
You know, during my time as mayor, I'm very proud of what we've been able to do with the growth in our assessments and funding public education and funding the paving of our roads. What we've done over the course of the last 4 years is we collected more of your tax. When we first became mayor, we were collecting taxes at 94.7% of the taxes owed. Now we collect more than 97% of the taxes owed. I'm very proud that we've moved more of the delinquent and blighted properties off back onto the tax rolls and bring more tax dollars into the coffers so we can fund some of those priorities. Moving forward, I think we have to work with the General Assembly and actually more tax revenue streams like the legalization of cannabis and marijuana should be available to us so we can actually put more dollars into the at-risk add-on for public education. Raising taxes, no one loves it. It should be the last resort. Bottom line, do all the things I just stated first, and then you can have the conversation.
Thank you. Justin?
Yes, I think we should absolutely not raise taxes. And not only do I think we shouldn't raise taxes, I commit to not raising any tax rates during my administration. And that's because, going back to the last question, the ridiculous amount of waste and mismanagement in our city. We don't have a revenue problem. We have problems with misplaced priorities and mismanagement. And what we should be doing right now, you know, they're projecting a $13.75 million surplus in the current budget. We should first be using that to clean up our city from the damage done this summer, the graffiti, the damages to business. And then in the long term, use that to actually lower our tax rates and our property tax rates to help our people during this tough and uncertain economic time.
Thank you. Kim?
Sure. So not only will I not raise taxes, I've had a tax deferral paper that's been pushed back by the mayor and his administration for the past couple of years. This would help homeowners stay in their homes when they see rapid increases in their tax assessments. It would defer taxes that exceed a certain amount so that they would pay it upon the sale of their homes, or it would fall off the books after 20 years of deferral. So I have a plan in place to help keep people from having to move out of their homes due to higher real estate taxes. And I also helped the restaurant industry when they had the meals tax increase. I phased in over a 2-year period a rebate of 3% for the credit card fees that they pay, which mimics what other localities do, like Henrico. They rebate.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Next question is on crime and public safety. Unrelated to the looting that we experienced this year, Richmond, like much of the country, has experienced a sharp uptick in violent crime. Without more federal help to the unemployed, crime has the potential to get worse as people get more desperate. What would you like the police to do in working with the community to keep it as safe as possible? What additional agencies would help to reduce the desperation? Start this one with LeVar.
Yes, violent crime in the city is down 13%. Property crime in the city is down 10%. Major crimes in the city is down 10%. Crime overall is down. However, we have seen a spike, an increase in gun violence in the city, as cities like Atlanta and Philadelphia and New York have seen as well. Why? Because during COVID-19 and the pandemic, we've had to close libraries and recreation centers and ballparks and basketball courts. These are the services that normally engage our youth, engage young adults as well. And so moving forward, yes, you're going to see more of a presence from the police department in our areas that are victims to a lot of gun violence and gunfire. However, we cannot arrest our way out of this problem. We need to use every tool in our human services portfolio, working with VCU, working with all our partners, and using a human services lens to wrap our arms and our services around every young person we can, every young adult we can, to ensure that they will not be a victim of gun violence in the city of Richmond.
Thank you. Justin?
The dramatic increase in shootings we've seen in the city and homicides we've seen in the city is a crisis that has to be addressed as the top priority. To put it in perspective, in the last 12 months, there have been 65 homicides in Richmond compared to 62 COVID deaths. And I think that shows you how important and how quickly this needs to be addressed. And so how are we going to address it? I do think it is related to the unrest that we saw over the summer, because we had to pull the police presence away from our communities and instead focus on the potential for riots going on Monument Avenue and Broad Street. And what we saw is we saw gang violence and other violence fill in the gaps. It started immediately at the same time. And so we have to get our police back patrolling our communities, involved in our communities, listening to people in our communities, and so that we can figure out where the problems are, reestablish the presence there, because I believe lawlessness breeds more lawlessness. And so we have to get our city back under control, reestablish confidence in the city of Richmond.
Thank you. Kim?
Certainly. I've been spending a lot of time in the community, and especially in our public housing communities. I was just this week in Gilpin Court, and I've never been met with as many tears at the doors of the moms who live in Gilpin Court, whose children aren't able to go outside and feel safe in their own homes and communities. So I do think that the violent spike in violence that we're seeing is a direct result of the lawlessness that's been allowed by this mayor. We see open air drug markets that we hadn't seen before. There's no real police presence when there's evidence of violence and outbreaks. There's been little to no response on the part of the police. I would implement teams of mental health, social workers, and police, and reinstitute the community policing model that was so successful under Rodney Monroe.
Thank you. Alexis?
Of course, the violence that we're seeing in our community is really heartbreaking. I grew up, again, in the Richmond area. I remember when Richmond was the murder capital of the country. And I regret, of course, that we're seeing the spike of violence again in our communities. I think that it is really important that we are investing in what can solve the root causes of crime, whether that is poverty, mental health issues. And that's why I was really grateful that Councilwoman Lynch and Councilmember Jones put in a paper that asked us to observe and report on what issues or what services within Richmond Police Department were related to mental health and community social services that perhaps would be better provided by another entity that the community trusted more. Unfortunately, Councilwoman Gray voted against that paper. And I think that is a misalignment and frankly shows that, Ms. Gray, it maybe isn't as committed to actually moving forward on some of these mental health issues.
Thank you. LeVar?
I already answered the question, Norma.
Oh,
I'll
sorry.
answer it again. You want me to?
Going around in a circle, I lose track
I
sometimes.
know.
Sorry.
On the Zoom too, you know.
Kim, I'd like to start with you on this one. This is a question about recovery. There have been millions of dollars of damage done to Richmond, first by COVID and second by the rioting. What legislation would you propose to clean up the graffiti, repair the damaged buildings, and help the business owners and the unemployed get back on their feet?
So I have proposed legislation and got unanimous support to immediately infuse grant funds to our businesses and forgivable loans to our local small businesses with an emphasis on the restaurant industry that's been hit so hard. It is important that we recognize the significance of that revenue stream. So I think that any available dollars that we have to keep the businesses afloat, it's not really about thriving right now, it's about surviving as PPP funds dry up. We have got to keep these industries and these small businesses afloat because that assists with jobs in our community. And if they go away, those jobs go away, and it exacerbates all of the other social issues and issues that people are having with keeping up with their bills.
Thank you. Alexis.
I think we'll see, and as mayor, I would certainly lead the charge to make sure that we have community support for not only helping our businesses recover, but helping workers and individual families recover as well. It's really important that we are getting back to work, that we're seeing folks be able to return to their jobs, and that businesses downtown and across Richmond are, not boarded up, and that we're welcoming people into the city. I think the way that we do that is by going after and coordinating funding for economic relief, not just for businesses, but also for working people. That has to be a top priority. We've got CARES Act funding. We've got to lobby our state general assembly to get funds from them as well. And we've got to be as wise and as careful with our city dollars as well to make sure that we are getting people back to work and that we're coordinating those services for the folks that need it the most.
Thank you. LeVar.
Yes, 2020 has been a challenging year, and I am proud of that the Department of Public Works has recently stepped up and started the remediation of graffiti in parts of the areas that did experience looting and vandalism here in the city of Richmond. I'm also proud of the work that we've done to actually keep our restaurants afloat during this most difficult time, as folks have had to close down because of COVID-19 and shut their doors, which means a reduction in the amount of salaries and revenue that businesses were making. $3 million, whether it's the disaster loan program, which we reverted to grant, or the Richmond Recovers grant that we also just extended the application deadline for. Now 123 different businesses will be receiving grants immediately. Additionally, we also tried something with Richmond, the Robbins Foundation as well, which is a Richmond Family Fund for those families who are experiencing financial hardship. We basically took a crack at universal guaranteed income. We were with 25 cities that will be participating in this model, in this pilot program, where we will give a check to working families.
Thank you. Thank you. Justin.
Yeah, so the most important thing we can do to get things moving again here in Richmond is we have to reestablish the confidence in the safety of living and doing business in the city. So first goes back to not allowing lawlessness. And then, like I said before, using that surplus that it looks like we're going to have to get rid of the graffiti, help our businesses get back on their feet. In the long term, to help individuals and businesses, we need to make our tax rates competitive with the surrounding counties. Right now, we have the highest business license taxes in the area. We have issues with our income tax, our property tax being higher than the surrounding counties as well. With that surplus in the long run, we need to cut that waste, cut that fluff out of the budget so we can lower our rates, help our businesses be competitive so that we see business activity return to the city instead of constantly going right across the border into the counties.
Thank you. This next question is on poverty, and I want to start with Alexis. Every year, Richmond produces a new group of young adults who may never get out of poverty. These are the students who drop out before they graduate, or they do graduate, but they don't have the capability of getting into college or of working at more than a minimum wage job. What suggestions would you have to try to remediate this problem? How would you work with the council and the school administration to achieve it? Alexis?
Thank you. You know, again, my career has been dedicated to fighting for families in poverty and without access to healthcare, without access to important worker protections. I was part of the effort to raise the minimum wage for working families to $15 an hour. And that will, of course, have a huge impact on Richmonders. You know, there are two ways to help, reduce poverty in the city of Richmond. We can push families out, or we can lift them up the ladder of economic opportunity. Unfortunately, we've seen economic development projects prioritized in the community that would make it too expensive to live in the city of Richmond and push impoverished folks out. That can't be our approach. I would focus on fully investing and funding the Office of Community Wealth Building that has done an incredible job connecting folks to jobs and skills training, making sure that we have affordable housing for our community, and investing in early childhood care, equitable to early childhood care, not necessarily saying everyone needs to go to public pre-K.
Thank you.
Everyone has access to some kind of early childhood education.
LeVar?
You know, I'm very proud that I've, as mayor, been able to invest in the Office of Community Wealth Building that was started by my predecessor. We've made it more robust. We've invested in different programs because we won a multi-million-dollar grant from the state government. We invested in getting CDL licenses, opening doors for a number of people, particularly former offenders, those who may have fallen through the crack, may have had a mistake in their lives in the past, get a second opportunity working in the city of Richmond. Also, I think that we should look at for job opportunities in the city. As a lot of folks age out in Richmond, baby boomers start retiring, we need to hire new people to take those roles. We have to open the doors to our former offenders, those returning citizens coming back into the fray. Also, I will say that Richmond Public Schools working together with partners like J. Sargent Reynolds, using the property that Altria gave them some years ago, turning that into a workforce development center that allows for CTE education, not only on the community college front, but also while you're in 9th through 12th as well, so you can graduate with an associate's degree.
Thank you. Justin?
I completely agree with your assessment here. The fact that we have a 70% graduation rate in our school system is a crisis. That means 30% of our young people are set up in a way that they have almost no chance of succeeding in building wealth in our modern economy. We have to do something about that. And that's why I have a schools plan on my website, griffinformayor.com, that lays out 3 steps. First, we have to fix the buildings, like we have been trying to do for years, and we have not accomplished that with a fully funded school modernization plan. Second, we have to make sure we have a first-rate education on the inside of the building, because just fixing the buildings isn't going to get us there. So we have to have a student-centered academic approach that has a focus on literacy first, greater teacher autonomy, and high expectations for our kids. And finally, we have to have a holistic education approach that builds life skills, job skills, a robust mentorship programs, and also connections to local small businesses for internship opportunities, so that we can provide kids from economically disadvantaged backgrounds.
Thank you.
And connect them to opportunities they might not have.
Kim?
So I'm glad everybody is on the same page with respect to what needs to happen. The approach to making it happen after, I've worked on that specific building and getting a career and technical education program in there that was rejected. I am very invested, not only invested in seeing our schools improve. My children, 2 youngest children, still attend Richmond Public Schools. And I think that we need to be very deliberate in our planning and our funding of plans. The number one thing we can do to improve education for our students is to put a qualified teacher in front of that classroom with certifications in the area that they're teaching. If anyone is an RPS parent, every report card you get has a list of teachers who are unqualified And they have to disclose that because of federal laws, and that
Thank you.
needs to stop.
The next question is on racial equity. Besides policing and criminal justice, what is the most pressing current problem affecting racial equity in Richmond? How do you define equity, and how do you propose working toward that goal? LeVar?
I think the most pressing outside of schools is housing in the city. Last week, I announced a dedicated revenue stream for housing in the city of Richmond, Affordable Housing Trust Fund. In my time, we've tripled the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, taking in over $3 million. Over the next 5 years, we'll get to $10 million. We have to build 10,000 new units in the city of Richmond by 2030. And we also have to recognize that 45% of our residents are cost burdened. They use more than 30% of their salaries and their incomes on housing in the city of Richmond. If we don't get a handle on that, that's a problem that we displaced and moved in other places. But also, we've seen a 30% decrease in Black home ownership in Richmond since 2000, while white home ownership has gone up 150%. That's why I presented a plan last week that we push properties into the Maggie Walker Land Trust that will go targeted towards Black home ownership in Richmond. By the time we're done with this, we will have more Black homeowners, and also we need to transform public housing in Richmond. The Big Six, they've been around since 1942. It'll be 80th anniversary come 2002.
Thank you. Justin?
Can you repeat the question, please?
What, besides policing and criminal justice, what's the most pressing racial equity problem in Richmond, and how would you approach it?
Sorry, you broke up there.
Ow, don't
You said
do that.
besides policing and
And criminal justice.
okay, besides policing and criminal justice, so what's the biggest racial equity issue facing? Again, it goes back to the school system that we talked about last time. 70% graduation rate in a school system, it's 86% people of color. Like I said, when you've got 30% of your young people in that situation, not graduating high school, then you're failing to provide them an opportunity to build wealth, to have jobs, to have opportunities, to succeed and shrink the racial wealth gap. So we have to do what I was talking about, build a holistic education approach to provide those opportunities to invest and uplift our people.
Thank you. Yeah.
So I think Malcolm X said it best when he said, if you're in a poor neighborhood, you go to a poor school, get a poor education, which leads to a poor paying job, which leads to living in poor neighborhoods, and that cycle continues. So where I see the most impact is through education. I'm a mom of 7. I have struggled myself as a Black mother in Jackson Ward, and trying to access quality education in the city of Richmond is a huge challenge that I know I'm not alone in that struggle. And we've got to improve our education system if we want to improve our systems overall.
Thank you. Alexis?
So the decision to redline Richmond has not just impacted home ownership in the city of Richmond for Black folks, it's also impacted our public health outcomes. Because those neighborhoods are surrounded by concrete and divided by highways instead of surrounded by trees and grocery stores. That's, I think, the greatest issue that we need to solve. We need to undo the racist decisions of redlining within our community, making sure that we are diversifying our communities so that we're not having concentrated poverty, where the school system and the schools in those communities are underfunded and under-resourced, where they don't have access to a grocery store in their own community. They're not having access to equitable transportation. We have got to do that heavy work. And that takes rezoning the city, that takes working with city council to undo those decisions of the past. It's something that I would prioritize from day one, because racial equity has been an issue that I've been working on for years, not just in 2020, not just on election season.
Thank you. LeVar?
Oh, I already answered the
Oh,
question.
you already answered.
Yeah.
All right. Let's start with this next one is a public health question, and we'll start with Justin on this one. Living near parks and having street trees is not a luxury. Both have been shown to lower stress, decrease depression, lower crime rate, and increase longevity. Yet many of our most poor neighborhoods lack both parks and trees. What would you do to address this inequity?
Yeah, I think what we've got to do is finally have a mayor that invests equally in all our neighborhoods. We can no longer pick and choose favorite neighborhoods to invest in. We've got to take this huge booming budget that we've seen. Right now the budget's almost $80 million more than it was 4 years ago, even after COVID adjustments. And we're not really seeing anything in return from that, are we? And so what I would do, I live south of the river. My side of South River has plenty of trees, but a little bit further east of here, you don't see parks and trees, of course. And so we need to invest in all of our neighborhoods. And so it comes back down to leadership. Like I said, we've had mayors in the past, city councils in the past that haven't done it. So it's time to inject some fresh leadership in there that's actually going to pay attention to all our neighborhoods, not just the ones that donate to political campaigns.
Thank you. Kim.
So I represent a microcosm of the city, and I've been very, very deliberate in making sure that we are adding to our green spaces everywhere. And how we leverage our public dollars. I've worked with VCU's Office of Sustainability to get more than 200 trees planted in the Carver community and in Scott's Addition and along the Pulse Corridor. I've also worked with organizations such as Enrichment and planting trees in our public housing communities and making sure that we are greening our city in every way possible. I grabbed up money for a bike pedestrian green pathway in Scott's Addition and made sure that when we locked into a deal for a water tower for Loris Park, that we acquired more land than we were giving up for green space and park area. So along with Kristen Larson and Parker Agilesta, we were able to accomplish that.
Thank you. Alexis.
Yeah, the first policy platform that I put out after announcing my candidacy was on environmental justice, because we have to make sure that every community has access to outdoor space and has adequate tree canopy to improve public health. You know, as was mentioned, it impacts our asthma rates, heat stroke. We've made New York Times for the evictions crisis and for the heat island effect of redlining within our communities. That has to take bold action to undo. I've put out a bold plan on environmental justice that calls for reinstating the Urban Forestry Commission to come up with a plan for managing our forestry. We've got to go 100% with the Richmond 300 commitment to a 60% coverage of tree canopy in our communities. My bold plan has earned me endorsements from the Sierra Club and from the former superintendent of the James River Park System, Nate Murdock-Kitt. My commitment to our community and environmental policies is what will make the best impact for our city.
Thank you. LeVar.
You know, Norma, the New York Times was able to highlight the impacts and because of redlining from our past. It's ugly. It's ugly. You look at the heat island effects that impact parts of the East End and South Side. It shows that this is an issue that's paying a disproportionate impact on Black and Brown people in those communities. And so recently, I just rolled out a plan to new parks in the city of Richmond, 5 in South Side. The first time we'll be introducing new parks in the city of Richmond since the 1970s. Since I've been mayor, we've also had roughly 50 acres of new parkland added to our system here in the city. And we put 300 acres into easement as well while I've been mayor. Moving forward, we got to increase the tree canopy as well, and also reduce the amount of time it takes for an individual living in South Side and the East End to walk to a park. We should get it to 10 minutes for each and every person, no matter what zip code they live in.
Thank you. Next question is pertaining to citizen engagement. For about 15 or 20 years prior to the beginning of the strong mayor form of government, Richmond had a system where the presidents of the civic associations met monthly with members from the planning department. What would you like to see done to re-engage citizens in guiding the direction of the city? Start with Kim.
Sorry about that. What would I do to help with the planning process?
To engage citizens in having a voice in it.
So I have facilitated months and hours and weeks of meetings with the planning department I think that there has to be trust in the discussions and negotiations and consensus building, true community consensus building. This mayor has made promises, and he will tell you one thing in one room, and when he leaves, he'll tell someone else something different. He did that at the Ginter Park meeting when we met about the project, the seminary project. We have to have truth and consistency in the process, and we have to have transparency. We have 7 civic groups opposing the Pulse Corridor Plan right now, and they put in a FOIA request. The initial request said $400 for this FOIA, and then they came back once they said, okay, we'll pay it, and said it's $4,000. That's a serious issue.
Thank you. Alexis.
I'm a community organizer and a policy leader. So this is what my strength is, working with the community, listening to the community, engaging people in the process, and bringing them in. And let's be clear, city government is not accessible for a lot of folks, whether it's because of the language that you speak, because you're juggling childcare, elder care, care for a loved one. There are a number of issues that raise a barrier to folks participating in city government. So as mayor, I would do the heavy work to find ways that we can make our government more accessible, because it's not enough to just meet with folks that actively want to be heard by our government. We have to be going out into diverse communities, engaging civilians of all backgrounds and all experiences to make the best plans for our city. That's the kind of leadership that I would bring to City Hall, and my track record proves that I'm the leader that would get it done.
Thank you. LeVar.
I think, Norma, we can't just have access to the planning department for our residents. We also need to have access to every single agency that the city has to offer. Recently, I was able to launch over the past year a community ambassadors program, where we actually hire individuals who work for the city, who go into the communities, particularly those communities that have been long marginalized, talk about the services that we offer, not just in the Office of Community wealth building or social services, but about other big projects that might be coming to their neck of the woods as well. We can't just have neighborhoods or just depend on neighborhoods who have the squeakiest wheel or the loudest voices. We have to get to each and every individual in our community, and that's what the City Ambassadors Program does currently. But also, I will say this: we can't depend on City Council to be the vehicle as well. We know that City Council people who are running for mayor right now, tell the community one thing and then go behind closed doors and do another thing. They tell the community they're for 21st century facilities, and they vote against 21st century facilities for their children. That's the sort of leadership we don't need as mayor.
Thank you. Justin.
Well, might I respond to that? Because I take issue with anyone who says I vote against new schools. I'm an RPS parent. I'm the only one with children in RPS, have been for more than 20 years. I voted against.
Okay,
I
Kim.
voted against a tax increase that restaurants that he's going to have to find in the operating budget.
Norma.
Okay.
Ask him where that.
This is not a debate format, Kim. Justin.
He made an untrue statement about
Norma.
Okay. This is Justin's turn now. Justin,
and Norma,
respond to the question.
Norma, can you reiterate the rules for this evening?
It's supposed to be a 1-minute response and no crosstalk on it.
and no lying. But that's a rule you never follow, is it?
Yeah.
Kim, that's enough.
Justin, please go ahead.
Well, I guess we wanted to see that. I guess we'd be tuning into the VP debate, right? Here we are for a good discussion. All right, so back to the question of how we engage in community. We're talking about how before the Strong Mayor format, there was a lot of communication with communities and the many civic associations, and then after this Strong Mayor format came, that went away. And that's because the mayor's office became a stepping stone. And I think that's the biggest difference between me and the other candidates outside of my financial knowledge and skill would be that I'm not a politician. I'm not in this to build a political career. You're not going to see me out stumping for whoever's running for governor next year, making phone calls for people running for House of Delegates. I'm in this as a job. I am going to be working every single day to communicate with the community, to listen, to solve problems. And that's how we'll get it done. And that's how we re-establish the communication with our civic associations.
Thank you. This next question will start with Alexis. What are the main ways that you would like for us to increase our cooperation with the surrounding counties?
Absolutely. You know, again, I grew up in the Richmond area, so from Hanover, lived in the city for most of my life since. And, you know, to me, we've got to make sure that we have a leader as mayor who wants to do the heavy work of collaborating with our surrounding counties. You know, whether it's County Manager of Potomac and Henrico or in Chesterfield, Hanover, our surrounding regions need to be hearing from us. We need to be making sure that Richmond's getting a good deal. Let's be frank, there are plenty of people that want to live in the city, but they're working in the counties or vice versa. And we've got to make sure that Richmond is not getting the short end of the stick when it comes to transportation funding or recruiting good jobs to our community. So, you know, for me, my background is in coalition buildings and collaboration and bringing people together to solve problems. That's the kind of leader that you need as mayor, not someone that always wants to get a good headline for themselves or be known for the project that they've delivered, but someone that's going to be willing to take the back seat sometimes and say, hey, let's let Henrico take the lead on this and Richmond gets a win the next time around.
Oh, thank you.
Working collaboratively.
Thank you. LeVar?
Hey, Norma, when I first became mayor after the election day, I drove down to Chesterfield, met with the leadership there, drove to Henrico, met with the leadership there, and they were all surprised because they had never seen a mayor drive to them and start building that relationship. I've been building that relationship since day one. And the product of that relationship recently is the Central Virginia Transportation Authority. The localities coming together, the elected leaders, the administrations coming together behind a transportation authority, as you see in Northern Virginia, and as you see in Hampton Roads, putting dollars towards public infrastructure that we use all in different ways. Put more money into GRTC as well because of the TTVA. And so I'm very, very proud of that. That would not happen without collaboration, and would not happen without relationship building, friendships that go across city and county lines.
Thank you. Justin?
When it comes to regional cooperation, I'm all for it, and would definitely be trying to work with the surrounding counties for the big projects like how do we figure out arenas and stadiums and a region-wide housing platform. But we also have to realize that we compete with the counties. That's why I'm so big on fixing City Hall and providing efficient services to our people and our businesses. That's why I'm big on lowering our business license tax rate to make it competitive with the surrounding counties, lowering our property tax rates to make them a little bit more competitive with the surrounding counties. Because what you see when you have to deal with the city of Richmond and the inefficiencies in City Hall, you see people moving right across the border. Like look at Willow Lawn and the Libby Mill development. Those businesses want to be close to the hip things in the city like Scott's Addition, but they want to put all those commercial revenue generators right outside in Henrico County, so they don't have to deal with the city. So we have to realize that we do compete with the counties for jobs and opportunities and tax revenue. And so that's what I would focus on.
Kim?
Yes, I think half the battle is showing up. I've served on the Richmond Regional Planning Commission for the past 3+ years, nearly 4 years. And I've also served on the Transportation Planning Organization, which pursued the new transit authority that will help fund much of our transportation challenges. I think showing up is key. And I think when I got phone calls from our regional partners that Richmond had canceled the September meeting just last month that Richmond was supposed to host, they decided to meet anyway. And then were shocked to find that our mayor was sitting at a bar alone at Bookbinders during the time that the meeting took place, when he said he was unable to meet and host this important regional meeting. There are so many of those that the city of Richmond doesn't show up for, and I think it's critical that we show up and lend our support.
Thank you. Okay. All right, this is the last one of my questions, and then we'll have follow-up comments from all of you all. This one's entitled Bright Shiny Things. From the 6th Street Market to the Redskins training camp, to the Stone Brewery, to the Navy Hill project, many things that have been marketed as miracle cures for the city have ended up costing the taxpayer a lot of money. How would you make sure that we don't make a similar mistake? I'd like to start with Justin.
If you elect me, you can guarantee that you're not going to make that same mistake. How I first stepped forward and got involved in city politics was opposing the Navy Hill project through nocoliseum.com, and it's still up. You can go see that. Using my financial background, my accounting background, I tore through those financial projections, pointed out all the flaws, and called for a transparent conversation about it, because every few years we have to fight this battle where we have these big get rich quick schemes that are sold with deceptive projections, and then they always fail to meet those projections. It's time that we put our priorities first, fixing the schools, fixing the roads, fixing city services, making all our neighborhoods safe, instead of saying, hey, if you just do this big, shiny resume building project for a politician, all of a sudden, all of our problems will be solved here in Richmond. And that's not what I'm about. That's not why I'm in this race. I have no political insiders or big donors to make happy in this process. I'm here to serve the people of Richmond because I'm not a politician. So we can be focused on solving real problems here in the city.
Thank you. Kim.
So it's a matter of prioritization. I pushed for a Navy Hill Commission to review the project, and that was not met with a unanimous support of City Council, but it won support, and a majority of council was behind the Navy Hill project. But when the commission, which appointed people who were supportive of this project, came back and said it was not a good deal for the citizens, it failed. And I think that having transparency and community input in an open process is key to any undertaking, whether big or small. We need to set priorities as a community and as a city, and not let other people impose their priorities upon us.
Thank you. Lexus.
Small businesses made me who I am. You know, my dad, some of the first experience I had in the city of Richmond were going to barber with my dad. I had an internship early on at West Cary Group, right on Cary Street in the city of Richmond. Small businesses are the businesses that need support, and that we need to, and I think that we need to fix City Hall so that we are working more collaboratively to support the economic development and growth that small businesses provide to our community. Now, that being said, we do need to develop downtown, but we've got to do it in a way that doesn't hurt working people. That's what Navy Hill did. And, you know, the mayor recently said that he's learned a lesson from public engagement process when it comes to Navy Hill. You know, I regret that it took a whole 4 years to learn a lesson on how to do a community engagement process for an economic development of that size. It should have not taken that long. It should have, I think our mayor should have known to include council, to include the community. Of an economic development deal of that size, you need transparency. You need.
Thank you. LeVar.
You know, right now we are in a pandemic and we are in a social, an economic downturn as well. And we are going to need an economic stimulus. Right now, Trump is holding up an economic stimulus for localities like ours. And so our stimulus to me is the real estate that the city owns, city-owned properties, surplus properties owned throughout the city of Richmond, whether it's in downtown, whether it's the Foam Gas Works, or whether it's Greater Scotts Addition. This is the stimulus to get our economy back on its feet. And that means growing the city. Rico and Chesterfield around us are growing and urbanizing each and every day. That means in order to get this done, we got to have a robust community engagement process, but also we have the transparent process about where the dollars are going as well. Right now, Navy Hill would have been 10,000 jobs, $300 million for small business, particularly Black and brown small businesses. Lord knows, right now in a recession, we would need that. And that's what economic development has to do. It has to insulate us from the downturns, or we're going to see continuously a decaying downtown and decaying areas of our city. And we can't afford that, because when we do that, we leave Black and brown people behind.
Thank you. I'd like to ask our secretary, Ms. Julianne Condry, to ask questions. They're in the chat box.
Yes, this one is from Adrian. I would like to hear how the candidates would improve the social services department, especially responsiveness to requests for help in dealing with benefits and housing issues. And we'll start with Mayor Stoney.
You know, I sat down with the Department of Social Services, the Virginia State Department of Social Services. And what we need to do with social services right now is we need more bodies. We need more people to work in the Department of Social Services. Right now, we have a number of employees who have been inundated with a number of different issues and claims and In cases, we need more bodies to fill the current vacancies that we have. But also, outside of that, we need to pay them a better wage and a better salary as well. Because what happens in Richmond government is like everywhere, every other department. We hire good people, we train them up, and then we lose them to Henrico and Chesterfield because they pay better salaries there.
Thank you.
All right, Justin.
The social services department in the city of Richmond is just like all of the other departments in the city of Richmond. It seems that it's not responsive to the needs of our people. And there was actually an article in the Richmond Free Press a few months ago where some employees in social services spoke to the writer and said that they met with the mayor at the beginning of his administration and pointed out all of the things that they needed. And he said, no problem, I'll take care of it. But nothing happened, nothing changed. And that's what we're looking at in this election. We need somebody from the outside that's about action, somebody that goes in, that's actually going to make things change. We know where the problems are in our city. We know that we need to reprioritize and focus on schools and basic services like social services and fixing our roads. But we need somebody who's actually going to go in and do what they say. Somebody who's not a politician, who's going to flip the government upside down to get it back working.
Thank you. Thank you. Alexis?
I'm still doing the timing here. She didn't give him the whole minute.
When it comes to social services in the city of Richmond, we have to do as much as we can to coordinate the delivery of those services. Richmond Public Schools,
Still timing or not?
Yes.
the Office of Community Wealth Building, a lot of our city agencies are touching our community in different ways. And we need to make sure that we're being as efficient as possible, working with community partners to deliver access to services for Richmond residents. You know, I think also, again, I would lift up the paper that council members Lynch and Jones put in to examine ways that we can reallocate funding towards social services, mental health services from our police department. And, you know, again, I regret that that paper was voted down by council, subcommittee of council this year. I think that we need to be very deliberate in making sure that we are working to address the public health and social service needs within our community.
Thank you. Kim?
Sure. I not only worked at the state level in the regional compliance office for social services, I worked for the Secretary of Health and Human Services. And Richmond has gotten worse, not better, under this administration. I work with constituents and I work with people across the city who have not gotten their benefits as required by law. I work with families who are in need of services, from child protective services to any array, foster care. There are challenges that abound, and it starts at the top. It's a leadership and cultural issue. There seems to be a lack of urgency on the part of the social workers. They treat people in an undignified manner, and I will continue to work to change that dynamic. Many times I've gone to the administration and not gotten a result. I've had to go to the state for a workaround to get the help that people not only need, but are afforded by the law, and that's not being followed.
Juliana, is there another question?
Yes, this one is from Matt. This year has been very difficult and unpredictable. I was very troubled by the handling of protests, but I was also very proud of Richmond for standing up for social justice. Do you think this was handled well, or how would you have handled it differently? Norma, do you have a particular order you want to ask them?
I'd like to start with Alexis on this one.
So the number one thing I would have done differently is start addressing this issue when Richmonders started crying out to change our police department and public safety years ago. It has been 877 days since Marcus David Peters was killed in our community. He was a high school biology teacher. He worked at the Jefferson, and he was experiencing a mental health crisis. And instead of help, he was killed by a police officer. Now, make no mistake, of course, police officers are under enormous scrutiny. They are facing difficult challenges every single day when they show up to work. And they are not the best professional to respond to issues of mental health crisis. That's why Marcus's family and advocates have been calling out for years to change the way we do policing, to establish a civilian review board that has independent oversight of our police department, to establish a Marcus alert so that instead of a law enforcement response, we're having mental health practitioners go to the scene first. Those are the kinds of reforms that I would propose from day one.
LeVar?
Yes, this summer, thousands of Richmonders and those from across the Commonwealth took to the streets right here in Virginia's capital. They were marching against the injustices that have long threatened the Black lives and brown lives, not only here in Richmond, but around our country as well. We've allowed for folks to exhibit their First Amendment right. I will say, I felt like I was caught in the middle at times as a Black man, because I'm with those who support Black Lives Matter, but we also recognize that we cannot condone violence and destruction in the city as well. And I've been criticized by those who are protesters, who support protesting, but also criticized by the police and those who support the police as well. I'm on Team Richmond. I'm going to do what's right by the city with the data and the information that's given to me at the time. And I made some calls, whether they were criticizing one side or the other. I did what's right for the city, and that's why I think that we've gotten through this storm as we are here in October of 2020.
Thank you. Justin?
Yes, I would have handled it completely different. I would have not allowed the lawlessness. I would have kept the curfew. It would have been consistently and strictly enforced. And that's because what we saw was the narrative shift. We weren't even talking about police brutality or how to solve any of the root cause problems of the inequalities in our city. We were talking about whether it was okay to harm and harass innocent people or not. And so what we needed to do is not allow the bad actors to steal the narrative, and we needed to get back to doing things the right way. There's a right way to do things and a wrong way to do things. And what we're seeing now is we're seeing people contemplating leaving the city, businesses shutting down, contemplating leaving the city. And what that's ultimately going to do is that's going to leave us with less tax revenue to pour back into the people that we want to help in our city, helping uplift our people. And so we need to get to the root cause issues, not allow the lawlessness to distract us and to prevent us from solving real problems.
Thank you. Kim?
So first, allowing people to burn buildings and trash local businesses is unacceptable on every level, especially in our historically Black community and Black businesses. It was an irony to witness, but also tear gassing innocent people who are exercising their First Amendment rights. So I think there were a lot of wrong turns in this process. As a daughter of Richmond, my father was stalked by the Klan and beaten and left for dead. And the next generation, my brother, was beaten and left for dead for being a gay man in the city. And Norma, I reached out to you when my son had a really horrible interaction with the police. I think that we've got to get back to our community policing model. I worked with RTAP and pulling together the criteria for a citizen review board. And we couldn't get the mayor's office to respond to letters, and that's on the record for more than a year.
Thank you. Juliana, are there any more questions?
No, ma'am, that's all of them.
All right, thank you. Now each of you will have 2 minutes for a closing statement. I'd like to start with LeVar.
Oh, thank you so much tonight, Norma, for having us, and thank you, Ginter Park, for allowing us to provide our visions for tonight. Tonight, you heard a lot of negativity about what's wrong with Richmond, and I'm not going to sit here and tear my city down. I love this city. I couldn't work each and every day, working as hard as they do to lift people up. You know, some people want to write my obituary already. Some want to write my biography, and some will say that I will be known as the mayor who removed those racist Confederate monuments. But I want to be known for more than that. I want to be known as the mayor who transformed public education, transformed public housing in our city, and provided ways for economic mobility for all of our people in the city. You know, people ask me, is this a racial reckoning in Richmond? And I say, the proof will be in the pudding. Where are we going to be in 2030? Will we have the same disparities in education, in wealth generation, in housing? We cannot miss our moment. I'm running for mayor for the next 4 years because I don't want my city to miss her moment. I ask for your support in another 4 years to continue moving the Richmond forward.
Thank you. Justin.
So tonight we've heard a lot of the things we hear every election cycle. We've got failing schools, poor city services here in Richmond. Many of our residents live in poverty, but we hear the same promises every 4 years, but nothing happens, nothing changes. And so your job now is to examine the candidates and decide which of the people I heard from tonight do I believe will actually do anything about it. If you go to my website, griffinformayor.com, you'll see my detailed thoughts and plans. You'll see ways to reach out to me, to set up a time to talk to me one-on-one. And you'll even, like I said, on my social media, see many of the examples that I'm talking about with mismanagement and waste here in the city. The way that the city of Richmond is run is not normal. We have a great city other than our city government. And we don't have to accept things like having the worst school district in the state, roads that are crumbling, pathetic city services, or a city where there's a shooting almost daily. And things can get better, but they will only get better if we stop shuffling the same players around to different chairs and expecting anything different. It's time for new leadership in the city, leadership that understands finance, leadership that is outside the political establishment, leadership that cannot be bought or bullied, and most of all, leadership that does not make excuses for failure. And I'm running in this election to end up spending every waking hour working to fix all the problems that we've been talking about tonight. And because I believe that Richmond deserves better, you deserve better, and that's exactly what you'll get if you elect me.
Thank you. Kim.
So not only have I served our city, it's about service above self. It's about truth and integrity and knowing when a person tells you they're going to show up, that they do. I have provided coats for cold children who were out in the cold with no jackets and coats. I've worked just this morning and this week because social services again fell through for a family. I've been driving a family of children to a pod so they can get a quality education and get out of their home environment. It's about compassion, it's about caring, it's about showing up, and it's about telling the truth. And I am a Richmonder for Richmond. We're a collection of wonderful neighborhoods that need to be supported. And I will always show up for you, and I will always support you as individuals and as a community. So I hope to have your support as your next mayor. Thank you for tonight, and thank you all for putting this together. I do apologize for losing my cool there, but it is important to note that I've always fought for schools, and it's an affront to me when anybody says otherwise.
Thank you. Alexis.
Well, good evening again, and thank you all so much for taking some time on a Wednesday to hear from the candidates. Again, I hope to earn your support. I would say now is the time for bold vision and bold leadership for the city of Richmond. Someone who knows how to work with the community and bring folks together. People that are hurting right now because we're in the middle of a crisis. Things are tough. And it's not enough to say that you've been trying really hard for the last 4 years. It's not enough to say that, here are all the problems that are going wrong. You need to be able to present the vision for the future to solve it. And I hope that you've seen that in my plans tonight. Again, my leadership shows that I've always been on the side of working people, whether it was fighting for access to healthcare, establishing worker protections for nannies, cleaners, and home care workers. As a policy director for Lieutenant Governor Northam, fighting for early childhood access and behavioral health reforms. Those are my priorities. That's what I'd be focused on in the city of Richmond. It's not about my legacy or what I'll be known for when I'm done. It's about what the city will have seen, grown, and improved under my administration. I really thank you all for your time tonight, dropping my information in the chat, and I hope to earn your support. Please join our team at alexisrogers.com.
I want to thank all of you all for coming tonight and for being so committed to making Richmond a better place. To have your intelligence and your energy and your good ideas is a plus for our city. And I hope regardless of how the the election turns out, that all of you will be able to continue to make major contributions to our culture and our community here. And good night to all my neighbors. I'm glad you all tuned in.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank y'all.
Good night.